Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. This time, we're taking a really close look at Al Pacino's autobiography.
Sonny boy.
Yeah, Sonny Boy, to get a better understanding of his journey. And it's not a straight-up autobiography. Yeah, it's structured more like
It's a very
for little
interesting.
snippets, like little memories.
It is, and it focuses really heavily on his childhood
Yeah,
and his early years in New York before he hit it big.
yeah.
And the way that he writes it is so compelling because he really kind of emphasizes the moments that were pivotal for him,
Right.
the relationships, the experiences that really kind of shaped him into the artist and the man that he became.
Mm.
So it's more about the why behind the events
Yeah.
rather than just the when,
Yeah. Absolutely. And
It's not a
I
chronological
think what
story.
really stood out to me was just how difficult his early life in the South Bronx was. He's talking about living in a crowded tenement building with his grandparents, very limited resources, and he even describes how his grandfather, who was a plasterer, made a deal with their landlord where he would build a wall in their apartment
Wow.
in exchange for lower rent. So just this constant struggle to make ends meet.
It really kind of gives you a sense of,
Yeah.
the grit and the resilience that was required to just survive in that environment. And his bond with his mother really becomes central in this setting. Because she's the one who introduces him to movies, which obviously had a huge impact on him. And just imagine this at 5 years old.
Wow.
He's already acting out scenes from The Lost Weekend for his family.
Yeah, talk about an early sign. I mean, talk about the seeds of performance.
Right. And it wasn't just watching movies either. He describes having no playmates, no
Ew.
TV. So he would spend hours in his mind replaying these moving scenes that he had seen.
Wow.
His imagination really became his training ground.
Yeah, it makes you think about how hardship breeds creativity.
Right.
And he talks about later on that quote about talent being like a blade of grass pushing through concrete.
That's right. And that's Lee Strasberg's
Yeah.
definition of talent, which is just so fitting for Pacino.
Yeah.
But going back to his mother, their relationship was complex.
Yeah, definitely.
He talks about a very moving passage about her suicide attempt when he was 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
And just the profound impact that had on him.
Yeah.
He even connects that experience to a scene in Dog Day Afternoon
Wow.
years later.
Wow.
It
So it's almost like,
makes you realize how much an actor draws from their personal, well, it's not always conscious, but those lived experiences really add these layers to their work.
yeah, it informs their performance in
Oh,
ways
yeah.
that we can't even really see or understand. But, speaking of those formative relationships, we've got to talk about his friends, particularly Cliffy.
Yeah, they were really thick as thieves in the South Bronx,
Yeah.
where life was pretty unpredictable and dangerous.
Yeah. He paints such a vivid picture of them, constantly pushing the limits, throwing lettuce at couples on dates, opening up fire hydrants. They were even walking on tenement ledges,
Oh my God.
5 stories high.
No.
Can you even imagine?
It's hard to believe it, but it shows you, just the kind of environment.
It's like they were seeking thrills.
Yes, absolutely.
In a world that felt very constricting. But what's fascinating is that even then he had this awareness. Cliffy would tease him for not doing drugs and would call him high on himself,
That's right. That's right.
which is kind of a telling detail, don't you think?
Yeah, it shows that even amidst all of this chaos, there was this part of Pacino that was holding back, observing,
Yeah.
almost like he was already, in training to become an actor.
Yeah.
He was absorbing these experiences, even if he didn't know how they had shaped his future.
Yeah, like subconsciously gathering material for his craft. Yeah. And do you think those wild times with his friends, especially Cliffy's descent into addiction and early death, influenced the kinds of roles he gravitated towards later? The characters on the fringes, those who are kind of fighting their own battles?
It's a really interesting question, and it's definitely something to think about. Cliffy's fate certainly adds a layer of tragedy to Pacino's early years. And I think it begs the question, did it strengthen his resolve to avoid drugs? Did it fuel his empathy for characters who were navigating difficult circumstances?
Right.
Sonny Boy doesn't explicitly give us the answers, but those shadows are definitely present.
Yeah, those shadows are definitely there. And it seems like those years really instilled in him this deep well of understanding about human nature, about the struggles that people face. But now let's move from, those times with Cliffy to another really pivotal relationship, which was his meeting with Charlie Lawton.
Ah, Charlie Lawton. The iconic actor known for The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Mutiny on the Bounty. I mean, to have someone like that believe in you, especially as a young, aspiring actor,
Right.
it's huge.
It's a dream come true.
Yeah.
And they would spend hours walking and talking,
That's right.
discussing art and life. And, he really became a mentor
Mm-hmm.
who saw something special in Pacino, this raw talent that needed nurturing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because despite this encouragement from Lawton, who obviously embodied the power of formal training,
Right.
Pacino actually rejects that path at this point.
Right.
He chooses intuition,
Yeah.
personal interpretation, which would become a defining characteristic throughout his entire career.
Yeah, it speaks to his independent spirit, his belief that acting comes from within. But even with Lawton's guidance,
Yes.
those early years were filled with rejection, uncertainty. He talks about those brutal auditions, even one where the famous acting teacher Herbert Burkhoff just tore apart
Oh, my
his
goodness.
Shakespearean monologue. Can you imagine how disheartening that must have been?
Oh, yeah. It shows that even the greats face those moments of doubt,
Right.
those setbacks that really test their commitment. But Pacino persevered. He kept honing his craft
He kept going.
until he finally got his break. And that break came in the form of a play called The Indian Wants the Bronx, which was set in the very environment that he grew up in.
Right back where he started.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where things start to shift.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that turning point in his career. What was it about this particular play that resonated so deeply?
Well, he initially wasn't sure about it, but something just clicked during the audition. He found his groove,
Yeah.
his connection to the character, and the reviews were phenomenal,
Wow.
especially Clive Barnes's rave in the New York Times.
Wow. So this was it. This was his official launch.
Yes.
From the South Bronx to the stage.
From the South Bronx to the stage.
That's incredible.
Absolutely. He wins an Obie Award, which is the off-Broadway equivalent of a Tony Award.
Wow.
And he even gets to perform the play at the Spoleto Festival in Italy.
Wow. Talk about a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From those tough streets to an international stage.
Yeah, and it really shows how unpredictable an artist's path can be.
Absolutely.
And how sometimes the things that seem like obstacles actually fuel your creative fire.
That's right.
But now he's got this recognition and suddenly he's dealing with fame. How did he handle that transition, especially considering how private he is?
That's a great question, and that's where we'll pick up in part 2.
Okay. We're going to see how Pacino grapples with being thrust into the spotlight.
Yes.
We're going to talk about his relationship with Jill Clayburgh and, of course, the game changer,
Yes.
The Godfather.
The Godfather. This is where we see the South Bronx kid transformed into a Hollywood icon.
Stay with us. So we left off with Al Pacino stepping onto the world stage, professional acting.
Right.
And now he's facing a whole new set of challenges. Fame.
Yeah, he found that really difficult. And you mentioned that it was especially jarring for him after seeing his picture in the New York Times for the first time.
Yeah.
It was almost like this out-of-body experience for him.
Right.
He talks about how he felt like a stranger to himself.
Right.
And he really started to avoid media attention. He felt uncomfortable with being recognized.
Yeah.
It's interesting because this is something that a lot of people who are thrust into the spotlight experience.
Right.
But it seems to have been especially challenging for someone as private as Pacino.
Right. It's almost ironic, isn't it?
It is.
Given, the powerful and often larger-than-life characters that he would go on to portray.
Right.
He was drawn to this, expressing himself on stage and screen, yet he guarded his inner world fiercely.
Absolutely.
And it's this push and pull between the public persona and the private individual that really becomes a theme throughout his career.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And right in the midst of all this,
Yeah.
he meets actress Jill Clayburgh.
Yeah.
And they begin this relationship that seems to have been really grounded in this deep mutual respect and understanding.
Yeah.
Even though they came from very different worlds.
Yeah, opposites attract, right? He was the kid from the South Bronx.
Right. And he describes her as,
Yeah.
An Upper East Side girl who went to private schools.
Yeah, completely different backgrounds.
Completely different worlds. But they were united by their passion for acting.
Right.
And their ambition. And it seems like Clayburgh was really a source of strength for Pacino during these early years of success.
Yeah.
Helping him navigate the often turbulent waters of a rising career.
Right. But even with love and success in the theater world,
Yeah.
Pacino still viewed Hollywood as something distant, almost separate from his New York life,
Yes.
until he was offered the role of Michael Corleone in The Godfather.
Oh, The Godfather.
Right?
Talk about a turning point.
Talk about a turning point. This was the role that would catapult him to international stardom.
Absolutely.
And really cement his place in film history. But it wasn't an easy journey.
No, it wasn't.
He talks about struggling during those screen tests, feeling out of place among these more established actors who are also vying for the part.
Right.
And can you imagine the pressure?
Oh, I can only imagine.
Questioning whether he was right for the role, whether he could embody the complexity of Michael Corleone, this quiet, calculating war hero who transforms into this ruthless mob boss.
Right.
But thankfully, director Francis Ford Coppola saw something special in Pacino.
He did.
Something that those studio executives initially missed.
They did. And he really fought for Pacino to get that role.
Wow.
He believed that he was the only one who could truly bring Michael to life.
Wow, that's incredible. And that belief from Coppola seems to have been so vital.
Yeah.
It gave him the confidence to dig deep and bring his own unique interpretation to the character. But this wasn't the only gift that Coppola brought to Pacino's life.
Oh, are you talking about Diane Keaton?
I am talking about Diane Keaton. Coppola had this intuition that Keaton would be perfect as Kay Adams, Michael's love interest. And he encouraged them to meet before the screen test. And their chemistry was undeniable.
Absolutely.
Both on and off screen.
On and off screen, yeah.
Yeah.
But even with Coppola's support
Right.
and Keaton by his side, there were still challenges.
Right.
Pacino talks about this particularly nerve-wracking moment.
Yeah.
After a week and a half of filming, Coppola pulls him aside during dinner.
Wow.
And tells him that he's not cutting it.
Oh, man. That must have been devastating.
Oh, I can't imagine. To have the director, the person whose vision you're trying to fulfill, tell you that you're not living up to expectations.
Right.
I can only imagine the self-doubt that must have stirred up.
It's like having the rug pulled out from under you.
Absolutely.
And he talks about, feeling this immense pressure, like he was going to be replaced at any moment.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
He didn't let that fear paralyze him.
No.
He actually channeled it into his performance.
Wow.
Using that anxiety to fuel Michael's own sense of isolation and paranoia.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How he was able to turn that negative experience into something positive.
Yeah.
Something that ultimately enriched his portrayal.
Right, right. And he even talks about how shooting a crucial scene in this small claustrophobic restaurant.
Oh, yes.
Under the elevated train tracks mirrored Michael's descent into darkness.
That's right. So it wasn't just his internal state.
Right.
But the physical environment was also feeding into the performance.
Wow, that's powerful. And then, of course, there's the legendary Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando.
Who played Vito Corleone.
Yes.
Michael's father.
The Don.
What was it like for Pacino to work alongside such an iconic figure?
He was obviously in awe of Brando, as any actor would be.
Yeah.
And he describes this lunch that they shared. And he was just struck by Brando's unconventional mannerisms.
Yeah.
Specifically the way that he ate chicken cacciatore with his hands.
What?
His hands.
That is such a great detail.
It is. It just shows you how Brando was so fully present in the moment. Blurring the lines between character and reality.
And you can see how much he admired Brando's commitment to his craft.
Absolutely.
And you can sense Brando's influence alongside Coppola's direction.
Yes.
Shaping Pacino's approach to the role. He understood that Michael, despite this outward composure, was this deeply conflicted and tragic figure.
Right.
And Pacino's performance captures that so beautifully.
He does.
This quiet intensity, the internal struggle, the transformation from this reluctant heir to this ruthless leader. I mean, it's no wonder The Godfather became a cinematic masterpiece.
Right.
And propelled Pacino to this whole new level of fame. But as we know, that fame brought new anxieties.
It did. And he even admits to avoiding the Oscar ceremony the year that The Godfather was nominated.
Really?
Yeah, he was so overwhelmed by everything and convinced that he wasn't going to win that he just stayed away.
Wow.
It's another example of how success, especially on such a grand scale, wasn't something that came easily to him.
Right, right. His aversion to the spotlight.
Yeah.
This desire to protect his privacy amidst all of the attention, it really becomes a defining element of his career.
Yes.
But despite that, he kept working.
He did.
Taking on new challenges, pushing himself further.
Yeah.
So we have Pacino now, a bona fide movie star, trying
Yes.
to reconcile his desire for creative expression with the pressures and expectations that come with fame.
Right, right. And that's exactly where we'll pick up in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore Pacino's later career, his continued exploration of acting,
Yeah.
and those personal reflections that he shares in Sonny Boy about the cost of artistic pursuits
Right.
and the enduring power of finding your voice.
We've traveled with Al Pacino from those early days in the South Bronx to Hollywood stardom.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at the later stages of his career as he describes it in Sonny Boy. And it's really striking to me how, even after achieving this massive success, he never really abandoned his roots in the theater.
Yeah, it's almost like he saw it as a homecoming. A chance to kind of reconnect with that rawness, that immediacy of live performance. And for him, it was also an opportunity to experiment,
Yeah.
to explore different techniques, and to constantly challenge himself as an artist, never becoming complacent.
Right. And this period also seems to be marked by a real sense of personal reflection.
Yeah, definitely. He talks about his decision to stop drinking, which had been a struggle for him for many years,
Right.
and how getting sober really allowed him to approach his work with this newfound clarity and focus.
Yeah, it's like he was shedding a layer, becoming more vulnerable,
Yeah.
more open, both in his personal life and in his art.
And you can really see that newfound depth reflected in the roles that he chooses during this time.
Oh, absolutely. He mentions Serpico, where he plays this undercover cop
Yeah.
battling corruption. And then there's Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon. Incredible
So
film.
the true story of this bank robbery gone wrong.
Yeah, these are complex characters grappling with really intense situations.
Right.
And he brings this raw, almost primal energy to these performances.
Yeah. He's not afraid to delve into the darkness.
He's-
Those darker corners of human experience?
No, he embraces them. And he's willing to push boundaries, too.
Oh, yeah.
To improvise, to bring that sense of immediacy to his work.
And he talks about that incredible moment during the filming of Dog Day Afternoon where he improvises that line, Attica,
Oh, yes.
during the standoff with the police, referencing that recent prison uprising.
Wow, what a powerful moment.
Such a spontaneous gesture, but it adds this whole other layer of social commentary and raw emotion to the scene.
Absolutely, a testament to his ability to be fully present in the moment, to react authentically to his surroundings
Right.
and bring that energy to the screen. And then, of course, there's Scarface,
Oh, Scarface.
where he fully embodies the larger-than-life drug lord Tony Montana.
Right, Scarface might be controversial,
Yeah.
but it definitely cemented his iconic status.
It did. And he's very candid about the clashes that he had with the studio during filming.
Yeah, he talks about resisting shooting that scene in Tony Montana's opulent mansion.
Yeah, he felt like it didn't ring true to the character's arc.
Right.
And he insisted on shooting it in this more subdued setting, even though it caused delays
Right.
and reinforced this perception of him as difficult.
Right, but it shows his commitment to his artistic vision.
It does.
He wasn't willing to compromise.
Right.
Even if it meant ruffling some feathers.
Yeah, that kind of integrity is admirable.
It is. And what I also appreciate is that he doesn't shy away from talking about the less glamorous parts of his journey.
He doesn't. No.
He mentions going through a period of financial hardship after being taken advantage of by his accountant,
Yeah.
which is a reminder that even those who seem to have it all
Yeah.
can face these setbacks and vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. But what's so inspiring is his resilience,
Right.
his ability to bounce back and keep moving forward.
And it all comes back to that core passion for acting.
Yes.
That unwavering commitment to exploring those depths of human experience through his craft.
It does. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Al Pacino's world through Sonny Boy, what are some of the key takeaways for you? What really stayed with you?
Yeah, what resonates?
I think for me, it's really a story about the transformative power of art, the importance of finding your own unique voice, and that resilience of the human spirit.
Yeah.
Pacino's journey is
Yeah.
a testament to the fact that even amidst immense success, there will be challenges.
Right.
There will be setbacks. But it's that passion, that dedication, and that willingness to keep pushing forward that allows you to create something lasting and meaningful.
Absolutely. And for any aspiring actors out there, I
Yeah.
think it's a masterclass in observation and empathy in the courage to be vulnerable. An invitation to find inspiration in the everyday, to embrace the messiness of life, and to never stop learning and growing.
And perhaps it leaves us with a question to ponder.
Okay.
Pacino talks about how, despite achieving global recognition, he still feels this pull toward that raw energy and experimental nature of his early days in the theater.
Interesting.
So what happens when an artist reaches a certain level of fame? Can they still tap into that sense of freedom, that
Right.
creative exploration?
Can they return to those roots
Yeah.
without the weight of expectations?
It's a really thought-provoking question, and one that I think we can all consider in our own creative endeavors.
Yeah. How do we balance that desire for recognition with the need to stay true to our own vision
Right.
and keep that creative flame alive?
Exactly. Well, I highly encourage everyone to check out Sonny Boy for a more in-depth look at Al Pacino's incredible life
Yeah,
and work. It's a journey filled with these unexpected turns,
it is.
raw honesty, and a deep appreciation for the transformative power of art.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep seeking out those nuggets of wisdom that make life a little bit more interesting.